Get out of my sight, Dr. Harlan roared. I don't need a black nurse teaching me how to save a white woman. Maya Williams stood still beside the trauma bed. The emergency room fell silent for one sharp second. The monitors kept beeping. Rain struck the ambulance bay doors. A young resident looked down at his clipboard as if the floor had suddenly become the safest place in the room. Dr. Richard Harlan pointed toward the sliding doors. You are interfering with my diagnosis, he said. I have a critical patient in front of me, and I will not have you distracting my team with guesses. Maya kept her voice calm. Doctor, her symptoms don't match the plan you're ordering. I did not ask for your opinion. She complained of pain moving to her shoulder at the scene. Her abdomen is rigid. Her pressure is dropping too quickly. Harlan gave a short, humorless laugh. Listen to yourself. You spent a few minutes on a highway, and now you think you know more than the physician in charge? I'm saying something is wrong, and I'm saying you are in the way. His voice rose again. You are making noise when this patient needs order. You are confusing the residents, delaying transport, and making my job harder because you cannot accept your place in this room. Tessa Monroe, the charge nurse, stepped forward. Dr. Harlan, Maya is only trying to tell you what she saw before EMS arrived. Harlan snapped his eyes toward her. I know exactly what she is trying to do. Maya looked at the woman on the bed. Eleanor Brooks lay pale beneath the white lights, her breathing shallow, her hand twitching weakly against the sheet. She had been conscious on the interstate. Frightened, but conscious. She had gripped Maya's wrist and whispered not to let them rush her. Maya had not forgotten. Doctor, Maya said, if you sedate her and move her before ruling out internal bleeding, she could crash in the hallway. Harlan slammed the chart onto the counter. That is enough. The room tightened. A respiratory therapist froze with one hand near the oxygen mask. Two young nurses stood near the medication cart, waiting for someone brave enough to tell them which order mattered more, the doctor's authority or the patient's body. Harlan stepped closer to Maya. You do not get to stand here and challenge me in front of my staff. This is not about challenging you. No, he said coldly. This is about a nurse who thinks being loud makes her right. Maya's eyes stayed steady. This is about a patient who may be bleeding internally. Stop. Harlan cut her off before she could say more. Do not explain. Do not argue. Do not turn this into one of those moments where everyone is supposed to pretend you're being mistreated because someone told you no. Tessa's face hardened. Richard. He ignored her. You have been warned before about overstepping, Harlan said to Maya. You correct residents. You question physicians. You behave as if this department is waiting for your permission to function. Maya did not raise her voice. And how many times was I wrong? That question landed harder than shouting would have. One of the residents looked up. Harlan saw it. The small movement was enough to make his pride ignite. His expression sharpened. There it is, he said. That attitude. That need to embarrass people. That need to make yourself bigger than the job you were hired to do. Maya glanced again at Eleanor's monitor. The numbers were not improving. She needs Dr. Porter, Maya said. Call surgery now. I decide who gets called. Then decide faster. The silence after that was immediate. Harlan's face flushed. He turned toward the security guard near the entrance. Calvin, take her badge. The guard blinked. Sir, you heard me. Tessa stepped fully between them. You cannot fire her in the middle of a trauma because she saw something you missed. Harlan pointed at Maya without looking away from Tessa. She is compromising patient care. No, Tessa said. She is trying to protect it. Harlan moved around her, his voice dropping low but carrying to every corner of the room. I am not going to have some black nurse embarrassing me in my own ER while a patient needs care. Do you understand me now, Maya? Or do I need to use smaller words? Nobody breathed. Maya felt the words settle into the room. Not just on her. On everyone. On the residents who had heard and said nothing. On the nurses who looked away. On the patient lying between them, depending on people who were wasting precious minutes protecting a man's ego. Calvin came toward her slowly, shame written across his face. Maya, he murmured. I'm sorry. She reached for the badge clipped to her scrub top before he could. For a moment, her fingers rested on the plastic card. Her name stared back at her. Maya William, RN. She unclipped it and placed it in Calvin's hand. Tessa whispered, "Maya, don't." Maya looked at her friend. "I'm not the one choosing this." Behind them, the monitor gave a sharper alarm. Maya turned back to Dr. Harlan one last time. "If she dies because you were too proud to listen, that will follow you longer than my voice ever did." Harlan's jaw tightened. "Get her out." Maya turned toward the sliding doors. No one stopped her. That silence hurt more than the insult. In a hospital, people were trained to run toward emergencies. But when the emergency was cruelty, too many of them stood still. She had almost reached the threshold when the ambulance bay doors opened. Cold rain swept across the floor. A man in a dark sheriff's jacket stepped inside, water dripping from the brim of his hat. He was broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, with a face hardened by years of midnight calls and county roads full of bad news. Two deputies entered behind him, their eyes scanning the ER with quiet urgency. The man saw Maya first. Then he saw her badge in Calvin's hand. Then he looked past them to Dr. Harlan, standing beside the woman on the bed. His voice was low, but every person in the emergency room heard it. "Who just fired Maya William?" Sheriff Daniel Brooks did not repeat himself. He stood just inside the ambulance bay doors, rainwater sliding from the brim of his hat onto the polished hospital floor. His dark jacket bore the county sheriff's patch on one shoulder, but it was not the badge that made the room go quiet. It was the way he looked at them. He looked like a man who had already heard bad news once tonight and had no patience left for foolishness. His eyes moved from Maya's face to the badge in Calvin's hand. "Who fired her?" he asked again. Dr. Harlan drew himself up, trying to recover the room he had owned only seconds before. "Sheriff Brooks, I understand this is upsetting, but this is a medical matter. Your presence in the trauma bay is not helpful right now." The sheriff took one step forward. "That woman on the bed is my wife." The sentence changed the air. A young resident's mouth opened slightly. Tessa closed her eyes for half a second, as if the truth had arrived late but not too late. Calvin looked down at Maya's badge as though it had suddenly become evidence. Harlan turned toward the patient, then back to the sheriff. For the first time that night, his voice lost some of its force. "Your wife?" "Eleanor Brooks," the sheriff said. 58 years old, retired school teacher. Married to me for 34 years. His jaw tightened. "And before she lost consciousness, she told me to find Maya William." Maya felt her breath catch. Harlan tried to speak, but Brooks lifted one hand. Not high, not dramatic, just enough to stop him. The sheriff pulled his phone from his jacket pocket. The screen was cracked near one corner, the kind of crack people kept meaning to fix and never did. He tapped it once and held it out. Eleanor's voice came through weak and broken, wrapped in static and rain. "Daniel, find Maya, the black nurse. She saw everything. Don't let them rush me." No one moved. The recording ended with the sound of Eleanor struggling for breath. Then a burst of wind across the phone microphone. Brooks lowered the device slowly. His hand was steady, but the tendons along his wrist stood out. He looked at Maya. "What did you see on that highway?" Maya glanced at Harlan, then at the woman on the bed. Her badge was still in Calvin's hand. Her job, at least for the moment, had been taken from her. But Eleanor's numbers were falling, and the body did not care who held authority. "She was hit on the driver's side," Maya said. The seatbelt locked across the abdomen. She was alert at first, but she reported pain moving from the left side up toward the shoulder. Her abdomen was rigid before transport. "Her pressure has been dropping too fast for a simple chest contusion." Brooks listened to every word like it mattered. Harlan cut in. "Those are observations, not a diagnosis." Maya turned to him. "They are warnings." The sheriff looked at the monitor. He did not understand every number, but he understood enough faces in that room to know fear when people were trying to hide it. "Is she in danger right now?" he asked. Maya answered before anyone else could soften it. "Yes," Harlan snapped. "Sheriff, this is exactly why she was removed. She is creating alarm without proper authority." The sliding door to the trauma bay opened again, and Dr. Elaine Porter stepped in, still tying the back of her surgical gown over green scrubs. She was in her late 40s, with tired eyes and the calm expression of a woman who had learned long ago that panic was a luxury surgery did not allow. "What's going on?" she asked. Tessa spoke first. "Possible internal bleed after high-speed collision." Maya saw abdominal rigidity and referred shoulder pain at the scene. "Pressure is dropping." Dr. Porter went straight to Eleanor's side. She placed 2 fingers on the patient's wrist, then pressed carefully against the abdomen. Eleanor's body gave a small, involuntary tightening beneath her hand. Porter looked up. "She's right." The words landed quietly, but they carried more force than Harlan's shouting. Harlan's face tightened. "Elaine, I had already ordered imaging." Porter did not look impressed. "She may not tolerate transport to imaging. I was following protocol, and protocol is not a substitute for paying attention." Porter turned to the nearest nurse. "Call the OR. Tell them I need a room ready now. Type and cross. Start blood bank notification." For 1 second, nobody moved, still trapped between the old chain of command and the new reality. Maya stepped forward out of instinct, then stopped. She remembered the empty place on her chest where her badge had been. "I don't have authority in this room anymore," she said. Brooks turned to Calvin. "Give it back." Calvin looked toward Harlan out of habit. The sheriff's voice hardened. "Do not look at him. Give it back." Calvin placed the badge in Maya's hand. "I'm sorry," he said again, quieter this time. Maya clipped it back to her scrub top. The small sound of plastic locking into place felt louder than it should have. Harlan's anger returned, but now it had fear mixed into it. "This is outrageous. You cannot override hospital personnel because you are emotionally involved." Brooks stepped close enough that Harlan had to meet his eyes. "I am emotionally involved because my wife is dying," he said. "But I am also the sheriff of this county, and I just heard a physician use race to remove a nurse from a critical case after that nurse warned him of a life-threatening condition. So choose your next words like they may be read back to you in a courtroom." Harlan went pale. Tessa let out a breath she had been holding. Brooks turned back to Maya, and in that moment the badge, the gun, the uniform, all of it seemed to fall away. He was only a husband looking at the woman his wife had trusted in the rain. "Mrs. William," he said, his voice lower now, almost rough. "Eleanor said you kept her alive out there." "Maya is fine," she said automatically. "Maya," he corrected gently, "help me bring my wife home. And if that moment touched your heart, give this video a like for Maya, for every person who kept standing, even after being looked down on. And comment below where you're watching from, because who knows, someone near you might be watching this same story right now." The request entered her differently than an order would have. Maya looked at Eleanor's face, at the way her eyelids fluttered, as if she were trying to climb back toward a voice she recognized. She thought of the highway, the crushed metal, the rain running down Eleanor's cheeks like tears she was too frightened to shed. She thought of all the rooms where she had swallowed disrespect because a patient needed her hands more than her pride needed an answer. Tessa stepped beside her and spoke softly. "You can hate them later. Right now, she needs you." Maya inhaled once. Then her voice changed. It did not grow louder. It became steadier. "2 large-bore IVs," she said. "Warm fluids until blood arrives. Keep her covered. She's already cold from the rain. Call blood bank and tell them we may need massive transfusion protocol. Do not give anything that drops her pressure further. Get Dr. Porter a clean line to the OR and have transport ready now." This time, the room moved. Nurses opened drawers. A resident reached for the phone. The respiratory therapist adjusted oxygen. Tessa took position at the medication station, already anticipating the next order. "Doctor." Porter gave Maya one quick nod. Not gratitude yet, but recognition. Harlan stood near the foot of the bed, suddenly outside the rhythm of his own department. Brooks moved to Eleanor's side. He touched her hand carefully, as if afraid the smallest pressure might hurt her. "Ellie," he said, voice breaking around the name he probably used at home, not in public. "I'm here." Eleanor's eyes opened a fraction. For a moment, through all the pain and fading light, she seemed to know him. Her fingers shifted weakly against his. Maya saw it. "Sheriff, talk to her. Keep her with us." Brooks bent closer. "You hear me, sweetheart? You are not leaving me in this hospital with all these people who don't know how you like your coffee." A faint movement touched Eleanor's mouth. Not quite a smile, but close enough to hurt. The monitor gave a sharp alarm. Tessa called out the new pressure. Dr. Porter's expression changed. "We're moving now." The team unlocked the bed and began rolling Eleanor toward the elevator. Brooks tried to follow, but Porter stopped him with a gentle hand. "We need room to work." He looked like he might argue, then glanced at Maya. Maya said, "I'll stay with her until the OR doors." That was enough. Barely. As the bed moved out, Brooks stepped aside. Harlan remained frozen until the sheriff turned back to him. "Doctor," Brooks said, "do not leave this hospital." Harlan swallowed. "Am I being detained?" Brooks's eyes went to the trauma room camera in the corner, then back to him. "Not yet." The elevator doors opened at the end of the hall. Maya walked beside Eleanor, one hand on the rail, eyes on the monitor, voice steady above the rush of wheels. Behind her, the emergency room watched in silence, and for the first time that night, everyone understood that the woman they had almost thrown away might be the only reason Eleanor Brooks saw morning. The elevator doors closed with Maya inside and Sheriff Daniel Brooks left standing in the hallway, one hand still lifted as if he had almost reached for his wife and stopped himself just in time. Eleanor Brooks lay pale beneath the overhead lights, the bed rattling softly as the elevator climbed. Dr. Porter stood near her shoulder, watching the monitor. Tessa held the IV line steady. A young resident pressed himself into the back corner, trying not to look as frightened as he felt. Maya kept one hand on the rail and one eye on Eleanor's face. "Mrs. Brooks," she said, "stay with me if you can." Eleanor's eyelids trembled. Her lips parted, but only a faint breath came out. "She's drifting," Tessa said. "I know." Maya leaned closer. "Eleanor, listen to my voice. You are not on the highway anymore. You are in the hospital. Your husband is here." At the mention of Daniel, Eleanor's fingers moved weakly against the sheet. Dr. Porter noticed. "She can hear you." "She heard me out there too," Maya said. The elevator hummed upward, and for one moment, the bright walls around them disappeared from Maya's mind. She was back on the interstate, standing in cold rain with headlights shining through steam and smoke. It had started less than an hour earlier. Maya had been driving to Street Mercy for her night shift in her old gray Toyota Camry, the kind of car that started with a cough in winter and had one window that complained every time it rolled down. A paper cup of gas station coffee sat in the holder beside her. On the passenger seat was a wrapped turkey sandwich she had bought for dinner and probably would not have had time to eat. That was the way most night shifts went. You bought food with hope and found it cold 6 hours later. The rain had been steady when she pulled onto the interstate. By mile marker 72, it became a wall. Traffic slowed. Red taillights blurred across the wet pavement. Maya eased off the gas, both hands on the wheel. Then, somewhere ahead, a horn screamed. Tires shrieked. A tractor trailer jackknifed across 2 lanes, and the night exploded into brake lights, spinning metal, and the terrible sound of cars hitting cars. Maya stopped before she thought about stopping. Her hazard lights began flashing. She grabbed the small trauma bag she kept in the trunk, pulled her hood over her hair, and ran toward the wreck. The first thing she heard was a child crying. The second was a man shouting, "Somebody help my wife!" People were getting out of their cars, confused and soaked, holding phones in shaking hands. A pickup driver waved traffic back. A teenage boy stood in the rain staring at his own bleeding forehead in the side mirror, too stunned to move. Somewhere, a woman was praying out loud, repeating, "Jesus, please," like those 2 words were all that held the night together. Maya moved from person to person, fast but careful. "You, sir. Sit down on the guardrail. Keep pressure on that cut. Ma'am, don't move your neck. Help is coming. Sweetheart, look at me. Is that your mama? Okay. We're going to get her. But I need you to breathe." A Georgia state trooper arrived first, rain dripping from his hat as he tried to take in too much at once. "You medical?" he called. "ER nurse," Maya answered. "I need flares behind that curve, and I need EMS told we have multiple vehicles, possible entrapment." at least too serious. The trooper did not ask whether she was sure. He just moved. That was how emergencies were supposed to work. Someone saw what needed doing, and everyone stopped caring who got credit. Then Maya reached the silver sedan. The driver's side was crushed inward. The windshield had spider-webbed. Inside, a woman with silver hair was pinned behind the wheel, her face tight with pain but her eyes open and aware. A blue knitted scarf lay twisted across her lap, rainwater dripping through the broken window onto it. Maya crouched low beside the door. "Ma'am, my name is Maya. I'm a nurse. Can you tell me your name?" The woman swallowed. "Eleanor. Eleanor. That's a beautiful name. Can you tell me where you hurt?" "My side," Eleanor whispered. "Left side." Maya glanced at the locked seatbelt, the angle of the steering wheel, the way Eleanor held herself too still. "Any trouble breathing?" "A little." Eleanor winced. "My shoulder. It's moving up." Maya's mind sharpened. Pain moving to the shoulder. Left side. Abdominal guarding. High-speed impact. Seatbelt compression. She reached through the broken window and took Eleanor's wrist. Her pulse was fast and thin. "Eleanor, do you take blood thinners?" "No." "Any medical problems?" "My husband says I'm stubborn." Despite the rain, despite the wreck, Maya smiled once. That might help tonight. Eleanor tried to smile back, but the expression collapsed into pain. A firefighter approached with a pry tool. "We're going to cut her out. Careful with the left side," Maya said. "Possible internal bleeding. Keep her as still as you can." The firefighter nodded. Eleanor gripped Maya's hand suddenly. Her fingers were cold. "My husband," she breathed. "Daniel Brooks. Sheriff? I'll make sure they call him." "No." Eleanor's eyes searched Maya's face with desperate focus. "Tell him. You saw it." "Saw what?" Eleanor struggled for air. The pain moved. "Don't let them rush me." Maya bent closer so Eleanor would not have to fight the storm. "I hear you. You'll come? With the ambulance?" Eleanor nodded faintly. Maya looked toward the road. More sirens were coming. More victims needed help. But Eleanor's hand was still locked around hers, and Maya knew that look. It was the look of a patient who had chosen one voice to follow through fear. "I'll follow," Maya said. "You stay with me until they load you." When EMS arrived, Maya gave the report quickly and clearly. She repeated the shoulder pain, the rigid abdomen, the dropping pressure, the possible splenic injury. One paramedic listened. Another, younger and overwhelmed, kept glancing toward the other vehicles. Eleanor was loaded into the ambulance. Before the doors shut, she caught Maya's sleeve. "Don't let them rush me," she whispered again. "I won't forget," Maya said. The memory faded as the elevator jolted softly to a stop. The doors opened onto the surgical floor. Maya stepped out beside Eleanor's bed, carrying the weight of that promise in every breath. The hallway ahead smelled of antiseptic, old coffee, and the quiet fear families left behind when the doors closed. A nurse at the desk looked up, saw Dr. Porter's face, and stood immediately. "Or two is being prepped," she said. "Make it faster," Porter replied. As they rolled down the corridor, Tessa leaned close to Maya. "You okay?" Maya gave a small, tired laugh without humor. "Ask me when she's alive." Dr. Porter looked over the chart, then back at Maya. "I need everything you remember from that highway. Seat position, impact angle, what she said, what she touched, how she breathed, all of it." Maya nodded. For the first time since Harlan had shouted across the ER, no one was asking her to be quiet. No one was asking her to know her place. A woman's life had finally made the room honest. Behind them, the elevator doors closed, cutting off the lower floor, the shouting, the insult, and the man who had mistaken authority for truth. Ahead of them, the OR doors opened. Maya walked in beside Eleanor Brooks, steadying the line, watching the monitor, and holding on to the last words the woman had trusted her with. "Don't let them rush me." The OR doors swung open, and Eleanor Brooks disappeared beneath brighter lights. Maya followed as far as she was allowed, keeping one hand on the rail while the surgical team moved around the bed. The room changed quickly. Voices lowered. Hands found gloves. Instruments were counted. Lines were checked. Every person seemed to understand that the woman on the table was not waiting for anyone's pride to catch up. Dr. Porter stood at Eleanor's side, studying the monitor, then the patient's abdomen, then Maya. "Tell me again," she said. "From the beginning." Short and clear. Maya nodded. Driver's side impact. Seatbelt locked across the lower abdomen. She was alert at the scene. Complained of left-sided pain, then shoulder pain. Abdomen became rigid before transport. Pulse was fast and weak. She told me twice not to let anyone rush her. Porter's eyes sharpened at that. She knew something was wrong. She felt it before we could see it. The young resident from the elevator stood near the doorway, trying to be useful without getting in anyone's way. Dr. Porter pointed at him. "Call blood bank again. Tell them we are not asking politely." "Yes, ma'am." Tessa moved beside Maya, already helping prepare what the team needed. Her face was tight, but her hands were steady. That was one thing Maya had always trusted about Tessa. She could be furious and still spike a bag correctly. Porter looked back at Maya. "You said Harlan wanted to move her to imaging?" "Yes." "With pressure falling like this?" "Yes." Porter exhaled through her nose. It was not quite anger, but it was close. That could have killed her. Maya did not answer. She did not need to. The truth had already walked into the room and put on sterile gloves. Downstairs, Dr. Richard Harlan was trying to rebuild himself. He stood near the nurse's station in the ER, arms folded, face stiff, while the department moved around him with a strange new rhythm. People still answered phones, still pushed carts, still changed dressings and called for labs, but they no longer looked at him the same way. Even the residents who once hurried to please him now moved carefully, as if his anger had become something contagious. A hospital administrator named Linda Carver arrived in a dark blazer thrown over a blouse that had clearly been ironed for a normal workday, not a midnight disaster. Her hair was pinned too tightly, and her badge swung against her chest as she hurried toward him. "Richard," she said under her breath. "What happened?" Harlan glanced toward the camera in the corner before answering. A nurse interfered with a trauma case. The sheriff misunderstood the situation. Linda's eyes flicked toward the ambulance doors, where Deputy Clara Hayes was speaking with security. "The sheriff's wife is the patient?" "Yes." "And the nurse he asked for is the one you removed?" Harlan's mouth tightened. "I removed a disruptive staff member." Linda stared at him for one long second. "Please tell me that is all that happened." Harlan looked away. That was answer enough. At the far end of the ER, Sheriff Brooks stood near the hallway, speaking quietly to Deputy Clara. He had taken off his hat, and rain had darkened the shoulders of his jacket. Without the hat, he looked older, not weaker. The kind of older that came from years of carrying other people's emergencies until one finally wore his own last name. Clara was in her 30s, sharp-eyed and calm, with a notebook already open. "You want statements now?" she asked. "From anyone who saw it," Brooks said. "Medical staff may push back. Let them. We are not interfering with care. We are preserving what happened." Clara glanced toward Harlan. "And him?" Brooks's jaw worked once. "He stays available. You think he'll try to clean it up?" "I think pride makes men do foolish things after midnight." Upstairs, Eleanor's condition worsened. The monitor tone sharpened. Tessa called out the pressure. Dr. Porter's expression changed from focused to urgent. "Get me another unit ready," Porter said. Maya moved automatically, checking the line, watching Eleanor's color, tracking the numbers that told a story faster than anyone could speak it. She heard Harlan's voice in her memory. "You are making noise when this patient needs order." No, she thought. This is what order looks like. People listening before the body gives up. Porter began the procedure with clean, efficient movements. The team worked around her, and Maya fed her the details that mattered. Her right shoulder was restrained by the belt, Maya said. Left side took most of the force. Steering wheel pinned her forward. Porter nodded without looking up. "That fits." For several minutes, the room narrowed to instructions, numbers, and breath. The kind of time that did not feel like time at all. Then Porter found it. "Bleeding," she said. "Splenic injury. Significant." The resident swallowed hard. Maya kept her eyes on the monitor. Porter worked faster. If this had gone to CT first, she might not have made it. Tessa finished quietly. Nobody contradicted her. Back downstairs, Harlan heard the news from a surgical nurse who came to update the desk. Splenic injury. Emergency intervention. Critical, but still alive. The words should have relieved him. Instead, they cornered him. Linda Carver pulled him aside near the doctor's lounge. The lounge door was half open, showing the remains of his interrupted night. A plastic salad container, a coffee gone cold, a phone blinking with missed messages. "Richard," she said, keeping her voice low. "Did Maya William warn you about internal bleeding?" She speculated. "Did she warn you?" He rubbed a hand over his forehead. She was being dramatic. Linda's face tightened. "That is not an answer. She challenged me in front of my staff." "And did you say what they are saying you said?" Harlan's eyes flashed. "People hear what they want to hear when race gets involved." Linda stepped back slightly, as if he had become more dangerous with that sentence. "You need to stop talking," she said. Harlan let out a bitter laugh. "Wonderful. So now everyone is afraid of the nurse." "No," Linda said. "Everyone is afraid of what you may have done while a woman was dying." For a moment, he had no answer. In the OR, Dr. Porter controlled the bleeding enough for the room to breathe again. Not relax. Never that. But breathe. "Pressure?" she asked. Tessa read the numbers. "Improving. Not great, but better." Porter looked at Maya over her mask. "You were right." Maya gave a small nod. Praise felt strange in the middle of danger. "Too early. Too fragile," Porter continued. Softer this time. "You understand that, don't you? If you had walked away completely, she might have died." Maya looked at Eleanor's still face. "I almost did walk away, but you didn't." Maya's throat tightened. "She asked me not to." The room settled into the next phase of work. The first battle had been won, but only barely. Downstairs, Sheriff Brooks stood outside the trauma bay where it had all started. The bed was empty now. The floor had been cleaned. Fresh sheets waited for the next patient, as if a room could wash away what people had said inside it. Deputy Clara approached with the first notes. "Camera caught the exchange," she said. "Audio too." Brooks looked toward Harlan, who stood with Linda Carver near the lounge, his white coat bright under the fluorescent lights. The sheriff's voice was quiet. "My wife was dying," he said, and he was protecting his pride. Clara closed her notebook. "What do you want to do?" Brooks looked toward the elevators where Maya had gone with Eleanor. He thought of his wife's message, the weak voice telling him to find the woman everyone else had tried to remove. "First," he said, "we make sure Eleanor lives. Then we make sure nobody gets to pretend this didn't happen." The first surgery did not end with celebration. It ended with a quieter kind of fear. Eleanor Brooks was alive, but barely. The bleeding had been controlled for the moment, and Dr. Porter had ordered her moved to recovery under close watch. The word stable was used carefully, the way people handled glass after a fall. No one in the surgical hallway mistook it for safe. Maya walked beside the bed as the team rolled Eleanor out of the OR. Her shoulders ached. Her throat felt dry. Every sound seemed too sharp now. The wheels on the tile, the monitor's steady pulse, the elevator bell somewhere down the hall. Tessa walked across from her, one hand on the IV line, eyes flicking between the bag and Eleanor's face. Dr. Porter pulled off her gloves and looked at Maya. "You're staying with her until recovery? If that's allowed." Porter gave her a tired look. "After tonight, I'd say it's encouraged." Maya almost smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. As they moved down the corridor, Sheriff Brooks stood near the family waiting area, hat in both hands. He had been pacing so long that his wet shoes had left a faint track across the floor. When he saw the bed, he straightened, but his face changed in a way no badge could hide. "Eleanor?" he asked. Dr. Porter stepped toward him before he could come too close. "Sheriff, she made it through the first operation. We found internal bleeding and controlled it. She's not out of danger yet, but she is alive." Brooks closed his eyes. For 1 second, the whole man seemed to sag inward. Then, he nodded, swallowing hard. "Can she hear me?" "Maybe," Porter said. Maya stepped back from the bed. "Talk to her. Same as downstairs." Brooks came to Eleanor's side and took her hand gently, careful around the lines. "Ellie, I'm right here. You hear me?" You gave everybody a scare. And I know you'd tell me I'm being dramatic. But I don't care tonight. Eleanor did not open her eyes, but her fingers moved faintly against his. The sheriff bowed his head over her hand. Maya looked away. There were moments in medicine that felt too private for witnesses, even when the room was full of them. Tessa touched Maya's elbow. You need water. I need her pressure to hold. You also need water. Maya let Tessa guide her 2 steps toward the wall, where a nurse handed her a paper cup. The water tasted like plastic and mercy. Brooks looked up at Maya. She squeezed my hand. Maya nodded. That's good. You saved her. Dr. Porter saved her. Porter, who had been signing a note on a clipboard, looked up. Maya, don't do that. Maya blinked. Do what? Disappear from your own work. The words landed gently, but they landed. Before Maya could answer, a hospital administrator came down the hall. Linda Carver had changed her expression into something polished and careful, the kind used for donors, lawsuits, and grieving families. Behind her was a man from hospital security and Deputy Clara Hayes, who kept a notebook tucked against her side. Sheriff Brooks, Linda said, we are all relieved. Mrs. Brooks is through surgery. Street Mercy is committed to supporting your family in every way. Brooks looked at her. Good. Start by making sure Dr. Harlan does not touch my wife's chart. Linda's face tightened. We are reviewing the situation. I didn't ask for a review. I asked for preservation of evidence. Deputy Clara stepped in calmly. We'll need the original ER chart, medication orders, access logs, and camera footage. No edits, no deletions, no summaries replacing originals. Linda looked uncomfortable. Deputy, medical records have procedures. Clara smiled without warmth. So do investigations. Maya felt the hallway shift again. The surgery had answered one question. Maya had been right. But now another question had entered, colder and more dangerous. What would the hospital do with that truth? Linda turned toward Maya. Maya, we should speak privately. Tessa crossed her arms. Why does that sound like something that comes with paperwork? Linda ignored her. This has been a stressful night. Words were said. Decisions were made under pressure. We need to make sure the record reflects the complexity of the moment. Maya stared at her. The patient was bleeding. I said she was bleeding. Dr. Porter found bleeding. What part is complex? Linda lowered her voice. I'm not your enemy. Then don't ask me to make peace with a lie. Brooks watched Maya carefully. There was respect in his eyes now, but also something like sorrow. He had seen people ask to soften the truth before. Small towns were full of polite cover-ups. Churches, schools, sheriff's offices, hospitals. Everyone knew how to say misunderstanding, when what they meant was, we don't want consequences. Linda took a breath. No one is asking you to lie, Tessa muttered. That's usually exactly when someone is asking you to lie. Maya looked toward the recovery room where Eleanor was being settled. The woman had trusted her in the rain. That mattered more than every tidy in the building. I'm not signing anything tonight, Maya said. Linda's professional smile thinned. No one mentioned signing. Not yet. Deputy Clara's pen paused over her notebook, but her mouth twitched like she nearly smiled. Dr. Porter stepped beside Maya. She needs to stay available for patient care. Any administrative conversation can wait. Linda seemed about to object, then thought better of it. Fine, but this hospital will need a complete account. Maya nodded, then asked everyone who stood there and heard him. For a moment, no one spoke. Down the hall, a nurse called for assistance in recovery. Eleanor's pressure had shifted again. Not dangerously yet, but enough to pull everyone back to the only thing that mattered. Maya moved first. Tessa followed, already reaching for supplies. Dr. Porter strode behind them, her face set in focused lines. Brooks started after them, but Maya turned gently. Sheriff, give us a little room. He stopped. The request hurt him, but he obeyed it. Tell her I'm here, he said. I will. Maya entered recovery and went straight to Eleanor's bedside. The older woman looked smaller now beneath warm blankets, machines, and careful hands. Maya adjusted the blanket over her shoulder and leaned close. Mrs. Brooks, your husband is right outside, she said. He's waiting on you. And I have a feeling he's the kind of man who won't leave, even if we ask him to. Eleanor's breathing remained shallow, but steadier than before. Tessa checked the line. Pressure's holding for now. For now, Maya repeated. Outside the glass, Sheriff Brooks stood with his hat in both hands. Beyond him, Deputy Clara spoke quietly into her radio. Farther down the hall, Linda Carver watched with the worried stillness of someone realizing the hospital's problem was no longer only medical. And somewhere below them, Dr. Richard Harlan still wore his white coat, still believed he could explain what everyone had seen, and still had not understood the simplest truth of the night. Maya William had been told to leave, but the woman who asked her to stay was still alive. Eleanor's room settled into a fragile rhythm. The recovery unit was quieter than the ER, but not peaceful. It had the kind of quiet that came after a storm had passed over a house and everyone inside was still listening for the roof to give way. Machines breathed softly. Nurses moved in padded shoes. The lights had been dimmed, though nothing about the night felt gentle. Maya stood near Eleanor's bed, watching the monitor the way some people watched a candle in church. Tessa sat at the small desk by the doorway, writing notes with the stubborn focus of a woman who knew every detail might matter later. "You know," Tessa said without looking up, "you are allowed to sit down. I'm sitting in my mind. That is not a medical position." Maya glanced at her. "Neither is arguing with me. It's preventative care." For the first time that night, Maya almost laughed. Eleanor lay beneath warm blankets, her face pale but less gray than before. A tube delivered oxygen beneath her nose. Her wedding ring had been removed before surgery and placed in a small plastic container with her name on it. Sheriff Brooks had taken the container like it held a piece of his own heartbeat. Through the glass, he sat in the hall on a vinyl chair that looked too small for him. His elbows rested on his knees, hat in his hands. He had not changed out of his wet jacket. Every few minutes, a nurse told him he could go to the family lounge, get coffee, stretch his legs, call someone. Every time, he thanked them politely and stayed where he was. "He's going to wear a hole in that floor," Tessa said. "He loves her, clearly. But love could use dry socks." Maya watched the sheriff lift his head whenever someone passed Eleanor's door. He carried himself like a man used to giving orders, but grief had made him careful. He did not demand. He asked. He said "ma'am" to nurses younger than his daughters might have been. He thanked the janitor who mopped rainwater from the hall. That mattered to Maya more than speeches did. A few minutes later, Dr. Porter came in with a paper cup of coffee in one hand and a chart in the other. Her hair had started to slip from its clip, and there were faint pressure marks on her face from the surgical mask. "How's she doing?" Porter asked. "Holding," Maya said. "Pressure still soft, but not falling. Urine output, low, but present. Temperature, coming up slowly." Porter nodded. "Good. That buys us time." Tessa looked up. "How much time?" "The kind you don't waste." Porter set the chart down and studied Maya. "You need a break." "I'm fine." "No, you're functional. Those are different." Maya gave her a look. "You always this warm after surgery?" "Only with people who save my patients, and then pretend they're furniture." Tessa pointed her pen at Porter. "I like her." Maya shook her head, but the corner of her mouth moved. The moment did not last. Deputy Clara Hayes appeared at the door, her notebook in hand. She did not enter until Maya nodded. That simple courtesy did not go unnoticed. "Sorry to interrupt," Clara said. "Sheriff wants to know if now is a bad time to ask you a few questions about the scene. Not the ER incident yet. The highway." Maya looked at Eleanor. "I can answer from here." Porter checked the monitor, then nodded. "As long as we keep it brief." Clara stepped inside. "Take your time. I'd rather get it right than fast." That sentence alone separated her from half the people Maya had dealt with that night. Clara asked about the wreck, which lane Eleanor's car had been in, where the truck struck, how long she had remained conscious, what she complained about first. Maya answered carefully. Driver's side impact. Seatbelt locked across the lower abdomen. Left-sided pain. Shoulder pain. Rigid belly. Fast pulse. Fear, but clear thinking. She knew not to be rushed, Maya said. Clara wrote that down. Those were her words? Twice, Clara looked through the glass at the sheriff. That sounds like Mrs. Brooks. She taught my nephew 5th grade. Woman could stop a cafeteria fight with one eyebrow. Tessa smiled faintly. I had a teacher like that. Still scared of her, and she's been retired 20 years. Maya looked at Eleanor with new softness. She had known the woman only in fragments. Pain, rain, whispered warning. Now pieces of a life began to gather around her. A classroom, children, a husband, waiting in wet boots. A county full of people who would remember her not as a patient, but as the woman who made them stand straighter and read one more page. Clara closed her notebook. Thank you. I'll let you get back to her. Before she left, Maya asked, Deputy? Clara turned. Make sure the original EMS report is preserved, not just the hospital version. The paramedics heard my handoff. Clara's eyes sharpened. You think somebody might try to change the story? Maya did not look away. I think stories change when powerful people get scared. Clara nodded once. Then we'll get it before fear edits it. She left. For a while, the room returned to its fragile quiet. Tessa went to find fresh, warm blankets. Porter stepped out to speak with the lab. Maya stayed by Eleanor. The older woman's eyelids fluttered. Maya leaned closer. Mrs. Brooks? Eleanor's lips moved. The sound was barely there. Daniel. He's right outside, Maya said. He hasn't left. Eleanor's brow tightened, as if she were trying to climb through fog. Don't let him. Fuss. Maya smiled despite herself. Ma'am, I think that might be beyond my license. Eleanor's fingers shifted weakly. Maya placed her hand near them, not gripping, just offering something steady. You're doing well, Maya said. You scared everybody, but you're still here. Eleanor opened her eyes a fraction. You stayed. I told you I would follow. No. Eleanor swallowed with effort. After. Maya understood. After the shouting. After the badge. After being told to leave. For a second, Maya had no answer. Then she said softly, You needed me. Eleanor's eyes closed again, but her fingers brushed Maya's hand. It was not strength. Not yet. It was gratitude, trying to survive anesthesia. Outside, Sheriff Brooks rose from his chair when he saw Maya look toward him. She stepped into the hall. She woke for a moment, Maya said. She asked for you. His face changed. Can I see her? Just for a minute. Quietly. He nodded. I can do quietly. Tessa, returning with blankets, muttered. That would be a first for most husbands. Brooks heard her and gave the faintest tired smile. Ma'am, after 34 years of marriage, I have learned quiet is sometimes the only correct answer. He entered the room carefully, as if crossing sacred ground. Maya stood back while he took Eleanor's hand. Ellie, he whispered. I'm here. Eleanor did not wake fully, but her breathing seemed to settle around his voice. Maya watched them for only a few seconds before stepping into the hall. Some things did not need witnesses. At the nurse's station, the wall clock read 2:17 a.m. The night was far from over. Downstairs, Harlan was still in the building. Administration was already choosing words. Evidence was being gathered. Eleanor was alive, but not safe. Tessa came to stand beside Maya and handed her a wrapped peanut butter cracker from her pocket. Maya looked at it. How long has this been in there? Emotionally or legally, Maya took it anyway. From inside the room, Sheriff Brooks's low voice continued, steady and broken all at once. Maya leaned against the counter for the first time in hours and let herself breathe. Then, the monitor inside Eleanor's room gave a small, uneven chirp. Maya straightened immediately. The cracker remained unopened in her hand. Maya moved before anyone called her. The uneven chirp from Eleanor's monitor was small, almost easy to miss beneath the soft noise of the recovery unit, but Maya had spent too many years learning the difference between a machine complaining and a body warning. She pushed away from the counter, the unopened cracker still in her hand, and stepped into Eleanor's room. Sheriff Brooks looked up from the bedside. What is it? Maybe nothing, Maya said, eyes already on the screen. Maybe the start of something. Tessa came in behind her and set the warm blankets on the chair. Pressure? Dropping a little, Maya said. Not a crash. Not yet. Those two words changed Sheriff Brooks's face. Maya softened her voice without taking her eyes off Eleanor. "Sheriff, I need you to step just outside for a minute." He looked at his wife's hand in his. Letting go seemed to cost him something. "I'll be right there," Maya promised. He released Eleanor slowly and moved to the doorway. He did not go far. Tessa checked the line while Maya assessed Eleanor's breathing, skin temperature, pulse, and the small tension returning beneath the blankets. It was not dramatic. That was what worried Maya. Some dangers announced themselves with alarms. Others simply leaned closer. "Call Dr. Porter," Maya said. Tessa was already reaching for the phone. "On it." Maya leaned near Eleanor's face. "Mrs. Brooks, can you hear me?" Eleanor did not answer. Her eyelids fluttered, but she stayed under. Maya placed 2 fingers against her wrist. Fast, thready, not as bad as before, but not right. Dr. Porter arrived within 2 minutes. Coffee abandoned somewhere behind her. "Talk to me." Pressure drifted down. Heart rate climbing. "She's cooler than she should be. Abdomen feels tighter." Porter moved to examine her. "How fast?" "Slow enough to make people comfortable. Fast enough to make me uncomfortable." Porter nodded. "I trust uncomfortable." Tessa read the latest numbers from the monitor. Porter's expression tightened. Could be post-op settling. Could be residual bleeding. Maya looked at Eleanor's shoulder, then back at her abdomen. A memory tried to surface. Slippery and incomplete. Rain. Broken glass. Eleanor wincing not only when she touched her side, but when she tried to draw a deeper breath. Porter caught the look. "What?" "I'm trying to remember something." "From the highway?" "Yes." "Then remember out loud." Maya closed her eyes for 1 second, shutting out the room. She went back to the interstate, the silver sedan. Eleanor pinned behind the wheel, the seatbelt cutting across her body, the left side pain, the shoulder. The way the pain seemed to climb. She said it moved. Maya murmured. Tessa looked up. "The pain?" "Yes." Maya opened her eyes. At first, left side, then shoulder. Then she tried to say something about behind her ribs, but the firefighters started cutting the door. Porter's gaze sharpened. "Behind the ribs?" She couldn't finish it, but she kept shifting her breath like deeper air hurt. Porter turned to the resident who had followed her in. "Get ultrasound in here. Now. And Page Orr standby." The resident hesitated. "You think she needs to go back?" Porter gave him a look. "I think she needs us to find out before she tells us by dying." He left fast. Sheriff Brooks stepped closer to the doorway. "Back to surgery?" "Maybe," Porter said honestly. "We are checking." He looked at Maya. He trusted Porter, but his eyes came back to the woman Eleanor had named in the rain. "What do you think?" Maya did not dress it up. "I think the first bleed was not the only injury." His throat moved. "But you found the big one." "Yes," she said. "Sometimes the smaller one waits until everyone starts breathing again." The ultrasound arrived. The room tightened into motion. Gel, probe, dimmed screen. Quiet. Instructions. Porter worked with focused precision while Maya held the line clear and watched Eleanor's face for signs the machine could not report. The image flickered in gray shadows. Porter studied it. "There." Tessa leaned in. "Fluid?" "Small pocket. Higher than I like." Porter moved the probe. Near the diaphragm. Maya felt the memory lock into place. That's where the belt line forced her upward when the car spun. Porter looked at her. "You saw the angle?" "I saw the steering column pushed right, and the driver's side crushed in." Her torso twisted left, then forward. It wasn't just a side hit. It folded her. Porter was already moving. "We're taking her back." Sheriff Brooks took 1 step into the room, then stopped himself. His discipline was visible, painful. "Is she strong enough?" "She has to be," Porter said. That answer might have sounded cold from someone else. From Porter, it was simply the truth, wearing scrubs. The team prepared Eleanor again. Tessa called blood bank. The resident returned with confirmation that an OR could be ready in minutes. Maya adjusted the blanket over Eleanor's shoulder and spoke close to her ear. "Mrs. Brooks, I know you are tired. I know. But we need you to stay with us one more time." Sheriff's voice came from the doorway. "Ellie, you hear her?" Do what Maya says. You always told me I should listen better. I'm listening now. Maya looked up at him. The words were for Eleanor, but they carried across the night and settled somewhere deeper. They rolled the bed out of recovery. This time the hallway felt different. The first trip had been urgent, but hopeful. This one had the weight of a second chance that might not offer a third. As they neared the elevator, Linda Carver appeared at the far end of the corridor with a hospital attorney beside her, both speaking in low, hurried tones. Linda saw the bed, saw Maya walking with it, and went pale. What happened? She asked. Porter did not slow. Possible secondary bleed. We're going back to the OR. The attorney looked startled. Should we notify risk management? Tessa shot him a look. Sure. Ask them if they can hold pressure. Maya almost smiled, but Eleanor's monitor chirped again, and the moment vanished. Sheriff Brooks followed until the OR boundary. There, a nurse stopped him gently. He nodded, but his hands curled around his hat. Maya, he said. She turned. Tell me the truth. The hallway quieted around them. Maya could have said what people usually said. We're doing everything we can. She could have offered a soft curtain of words for him to stand behind. But Eleanor had trusted her because Maya did not rush past what mattered. She is in danger, Maya said. But we know more now than we did an hour ago. That gives her a fighting chance. Brooks absorbed it. His eyes shone, though no tears fell. My wife hates hospitals, he said softly. She says they smell like fear and overcooked vegetables. Tessa murmured. She's not wrong. A faint, broken laugh moved through the group. It lasted less than a second, but it reminded them they were human. Maya said, when she wakes up, you can tell her she was right. When? Brooks repeated. When? Maya said. Porter called from the OR doors. Maya turned to go in, but Brooks spoke once more. She said you stayed. Maya looked back. He held her gaze. Thank you for that. Maya nodded, unable to answer without letting too much feeling into the hallway. Then she stepped through the OR doors. Inside, the lights were bright again. The room was readying itself for another fight. Instruments were being opened. Blood was on its way. Porter took her place, and Tessa moved beside Maya without needing to be asked. Porter looked at Maya over her mask. Same as before. Tell me what the body told you before the chart did. Maya moved to Eleanor's side. Steady now. The impact came from the left, she said, but the injury climbed, and this time, everyone listened. Dr. Porter did not cut until Maya finished speaking. In the OR, that kind of silence meant something. It meant the room had accepted that Maya's memory of the highway was not a side note. It was part of the map. The injury climbed, Porter repeated, her eyes on the surgical field. Then we look higher. Maya stood near Eleanor's shoulder, watching the monitor, the line, the small changes in skin tone that always seemed to arrive before the numbers admitted trouble. Tessa moved beside her with practiced calm, checking blood units and calling out updates in a voice steady enough to lean on. Pressure is soft, Tessa said. Heart rate, 126. Keep the blood coming, Porter said. Maya, tell me again where she touched herself in the car. Left side first, Maya said. Then higher, near the lower ribs. She tried to breathe deep and stopped. Then she said the pain moved. Porter adjusted her approach. There may be a small tear near the diaphragm. The resident across the table looked uncertain. Wouldn't we have seen that during the first operation? Porter did not look up. Not if we were busy stopping the larger bleed that was trying to kill her first. The resident nodded quickly. Maya saw his hands tremble as he held suction. He was young, maybe 27, the kind of young that still believed training could prepare a person for the sound of a life slipping away. His eyes flicked to the monitor. Maya leaned toward him just enough for her voice to stay private. Breathe through your nose. Follow Dr. Porter's hands, not the alarm. He swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Outside the OR, Sheriff Brooks sat alone in the surgical waiting area. Someone had offered him coffee in a styrofoam cup. It sat untouched on the small table beside him, cooling beneath a television mounted in the corner with the sound off. A local weather reporter pointed at a map of Georgia covered in green and red storm bands. Beneath the screen, A headline crawled about the interstate pileup that had already changed his life. Brooks held Eleanor's wedding ring in his palm. The ring looked too small for everything it carried. 34 years of Sunday mornings, grocery lists, school fundraisers, burned meatloaf jokes, church pews, county fairs, arguments about thermostat settings, and the way Eleanor always left a lamp on when he came home late. He closed his fingers around it and lowered his head. Deputy Clara Hayes stood a few feet away, giving him space while staying close enough to be useful. That was something good deputies learned early. Not all protection looked like a weapon. Sometimes it looked like knowing when not to speak. After a while, Brooks said, "She always hated waiting rooms." Clara looked over. "Mrs. Brooks?" She said they made people feel like children outside the principal's office. His mouth moved in something too tired to be a smile. She was the principal for 6 years. She would know. Clara nodded. "My nephew still talks about her. Said she was the only teacher who made him believe he wasn't stupid." Brooks looked at the ring again. She kept a drawer full of granola bars for kids who came to school hungry. Pretended she didn't know they were stealing them. That sounds like her. His face tightened. A woman like that should not have had to beg to be listened to. Clara did not answer immediately. Then she said, "Neither should Maya." Brooks looked up. Before he could respond, the door from the staff hallway opened. Linda Carver entered with the hospital attorney, a narrow man with polished shoes and a folder tucked under one arm. They both slowed when they saw Clara standing there. "Sheriff," Linda said gently, "we wanted to update you on hospital procedure." Brooks's expression cooled. "My wife is in surgery. Choose carefully." The attorney cleared his throat. "Of course. We only want to make sure all parties understand that tonight's events occurred under extreme pressure. It would be premature to assign blame before a full review." Clara's eyebrows lifted. "Nobody asked you to assign blame. We asked you to preserve evidence." "We are cooperating," Linda said. "Good," Clara replied. "Then it can provide access logs from Dr. Harlan's station, the ER camera footage, and the original timestamps on the patient chart." The attorney's smile tightened. "Medical privacy laws are complex." Brooks stood slowly. "Counselor, my wife is the patient. I am her spouse. I am also the county sheriff investigating a possible act of professional misconduct that may have endangered her life. Do not hide behind paperwork unless you want every page read out loud later." Linda looked away first. In the OR, Dr. Porter found the second injury. "There," she said sharply. "Small tear, higher than the first field." Tessa glanced at Maya. "You called it." Maya did not take her eyes off Eleanor. "Fix it first." Porter's hands moved with controlled urgency. The tear was small, but it was in a cruel place, tucked where a rushed team might miss it, and a tired body could not forgive it. The monitor dipped once, twice, pressure falling, Tessa said. The resident's breathing quickened. Maya looked at him. "Stay with her. Hold steady." "I am." "Then keep being." Porter worked. Seconds stretched. The room seemed to hold its breath around the older woman on the table. Then Tessa said, "Pressure coming up." No one celebrated. Not yet. But the room changed. Shoulders lowered a fraction. The resident blinked hard. Porter placed the final control and exhaled. "That should do it," she said. "Now we close carefully and pray she forgives us for making her fight twice." Maya leaned near Eleanor's ear. "You hear that, Mrs. Brooks? You were right. The pain moved, and we followed it." Eleanor did not respond, but her pulse strengthened by inches. When Maya finally stepped out of the OR, Sheriff Brooks was already on his feet. His face asked the question before his mouth did. "She made it through," Maya said. Dr. Porter found the second bleed. Brooks closed his eyes. The breath that left him sounded like it had been trapped in his chest for years. "Can I see her?" "Soon. They're closing now." He nodded, then looked past Maya toward the OR doors. "She told me to find you." Maya's voice softened. "She told all of us what we needed to know." Linda and the attorney stood nearby, suddenly very interested in saying nothing. Clara watched them anyway. Dr. Porter came out a few minutes later, removing her cap. She looked directly at Brooks. "Your wife is alive because Maya paid attention before any of us had the chance to." The sheriff turned toward Maya. "Then the county owes you." Maya shook her head. No. Eleanor needed care. That's all. No. Brooks said quietly. That's not all. The attorney cleared his throat again. But this time, Brooks did not look at him. Clara's radio crackled. She listened, then stepped closer to the sheriff. We have confirmation. ER footage is secured. Audio included. Linda's face tightened. Maya looked from Clara to Brooks. She did not feel victory. She felt tired. She felt the weight of every person in that emergency room who had heard Harlan and waited for someone else to move. Brooks noticed. We'll handle the investigation, he said. You stay with my wife. Maya nodded. As she turned back toward recovery, Tessa appeared beside her and held out the same unopened peanut butter cracker from earlier. Maya stared at it. You saved that? I believed in us. Maya took it this time and opened the wrapper. Behind her, Sheriff Brooks looked toward the hospital attorney and said, Calm as winter. Now let's talk about what your doctor said before my wife almost died. The night had shifted again. Eleanor Brooks was alive. Maya William had been heard. And downstairs, Dr. Harlan's words were waiting for him on camera, patient as justice. Maya had eaten exactly half of the peanut butter cracker when Linda Carver asked to speak with her. It was not really a question. It came wrapped in hospital politeness, the kind that wore sensible shoes and carried a clipboard. Maya, Linda said, standing outside recovery with the hospital attorney beside her. When you have a moment, administration would appreciate a brief conversation. Tessa, who was checking Eleanor's chart at the desk, looked up. That sentence has never made anyone's night better. Linda's smile held, but only because she had practiced it for years. This is simply to clarify the events. Maya folded the cracker wrapper into a small square. Clarify for who? For the hospital record, the patient record, or the legal record? The attorney cleared his throat. Those are not necessarily separate concerns. They should be, Maya said. Dr. Porter stepped out of Eleanor's room before Linda could answer. Mrs. Brooks is still critical. Maya stays close. Linda glanced toward the recovery room. Through the glass, Eleanor lay beneath warm blankets, breathing with the help of oxygen, her face pale but no longer slipping away by the second. Sheriff Brooks sat beside her, one hand wrapped around hers, his shoulders bent in a way no one in the county was used to seeing. We understand that, Linda said, but there are institutional concerns. Tessa set the chart down a little harder than necessary. A woman nearly died twice. I'd call that an institutional concern. Linda's eyes flickered toward the hallway, where Deputy Clara Hayes stood speaking quietly into her radio. Exactly why? We need to be careful. Maya looked at her for a long moment. Careful with the truth, or careful around it? The attorney's expression tightened. Miss William, no one is accusing you of anything. Not yet, Tessa said. Maya gave her a look, but Tessa only shrugged. Linda lowered her voice. Maya, please. 5 minutes. The conference room is right down the hall. Maya turned to Dr. Porter. If her pressure changes, I'll come get you myself, Porter said. Go, but don't sign a thing without reading every word, Tessa added. And if the paper smells like nonsense, bring it back so I can enjoy it. Maya followed Linda down the hall. The conference room smelled of coffee, printer toner, and old carpet. A flag stood in the corner beside a framed mission statement about compassion, excellence, and community trust. Maya had passed that sign hundreds of times on her way to cover short-staffed shifts. Tonight, the words looked like they were waiting to be cross-examined. At the table sat 2 more administrators, Paul Whitaker from Risk Management and Denise Hall from Human Resources. Paul wore a tie loosened at the neck. Denise had a yellow legal pad already filled with notes. They both gave Maya the soft, serious look people used when they wanted cooperation without admitting they needed it. Thank you for coming, Denise said. I didn't come far. Paul smiled weakly. Of course. We know tonight has been difficult. Maya remained standing. For Mrs. Brooks, yes. Linda gestured to a chair. Please sit. I'm fine. The attorney opened a folder. We want to create a preliminary internal account while memories are fresh. Maya looked at the folder. My memory is fresh. That's good, Denise said. Then perhaps we can begin with your understanding of the disagreement in the ER. Disagreement? Maya repeated. Paul leaned forward. Clinical disagreement. Maya nodded slowly. Dr. Harlan ordered a course of care that ignored signs of internal bleeding. I warned him. He refused to listen. He told me to get out. Then he brought race into it. The room stilled. Linda folded her hands. Maya. Emotions were elevated. My voice was not. No one is saying it was. He was. The attorney slid a paper across the table. Not all the way to Maya. Just enough for her to understand it was meant for her. This is not a statement. It is simply a framework for a statement. Should you choose to provide one tonight? Maya did not touch it. She read the first line upside down. During a high-pressure trauma response, communication between staff members became tense. She gave a small, humorless laugh. Denise shifted. Is something funny? No, Maya said. That's the problem. Linda's tone softened. Maya, this hospital cannot afford a racial incident tonight. Maya finally sat down. Not because they had invited her to, but because the sentence deserved her full attention. Then maybe this hospital should have stopped one from happening. Paul exhaled. We are not trying to minimize your feelings. My feelings did not almost send Eleanor Brooks to imaging with an active bleed. The attorney said, no one has established that Dr. Harlan's plan would have resulted in harm. Dr. Porter established it in surgery. That will require review. Maya leaned forward. You want to review whether bleeding is bleeding? Linda's face tightened. Maya, no, let's be clear. Maya tapped the paper with one finger. Which part was the misunderstanding? The part where he ignored me? The part where he endangered a patient? Or the part where he reminded me what color I am? No one answered. Outside the room, thunder rolled over the hospital roof. It sounded distant now, tired, as if even the storm had run out of patience. Denise tried again. We are asking you to consider the broader consequences. I did. That is why I spoke up. For your career, Paul said carefully. Maya looked at him. My career was taken from me, in front of a dying woman. Linda looked genuinely pained then. Maybe because some part of her knew Maya was right. Maybe because she knew right did not make a lawsuit easier. There may be a way, Linda said, to resolve this without public damage. Maya felt something inside her go quiet. For years, she had watched institutions ask wounded people to protect the walls that hurt them. Call it misunderstanding. Call it pressure. Call it a bad night. Smooth the sharp edges until nobody could tell where the cut came from. She thought of Eleanor on the highway, gripping her hand, saying, Don't let them rush me. She thought of Harlan's voice. She thought of all the faces in the ER that had turned away. I am tired, Maya said, each word even, of being asked to make cruelty easier for other people to explain. The attorney closed his folder a little too fast. I think we should pause this conversation. That is the first sensible thing said in this room. Maya stood. Linda rose too. Maya, please understand. The hospital has procedures. So do nurses, Maya said. We assess. We document. We report changes. We advocate. And when someone is dying, we do not waste time protecting a man's pride. She walked to the door, then stopped and looked back. I'm not signing anything tonight. And if you want a complete account, ask everyone who stood there and heard him. When she returned to recovery, Tessa was waiting in the hall with her arms crossed. Well, they tried to turn it into a tense communication moment. Tessa's mouth twisted. Of course they did. Racism always sounds so much nicer after risk management edits it. Maya almost smiled. But before she could answer, Deputy Clara came around the corner, moving fast. Where's Sheriff Brooks? Clara asked. In with his wife, Maya said. Why? Clara lowered her voice. It says someone just requested access to Eleanor Brooks's ER chart from a downstairs workstation. Maya's body went still. Tessa said, Who? Clara looked toward the elevator. Dr. Harlan. Maya did not wait for anyone to explain twice. She was already moving toward the elevator when Tessa caught up beside her, and Deputy Clara Hayes fell into step on the other side. The surgical floor was quiet behind them, but the quiet no longer felt safe. It felt like a held breath. Which workstation? Maya asked. ER side hall, Clara said. The one outside the doctor's lounge. Tessa made a sharp sound under her breath. Of course. Close enough to the coffee, far enough from witnesses. Clara pressed the elevator button. IT flagged it because Sheriff Brooks requested a hold on the chart. Harlan's login should still work, but any change is being tracked. Can he edit it? Maya asked. He can try. The elevator doors opened. Maya stepped in, her jaw tight. She had been tired before. Now the tiredness had burned away into something colder. Tessa watched her face. Maya, I'm fine. No, you're not. You have that look. What look? The look you get right before you politely make a grown man wish his mother had raised him better. Clara glanced at her. Is that a common look? With Maya? More common than administration prefers. The elevator dropped toward the ER. Maya stared at the numbers above the door. She thought of the paper in the conference room. Communication became tense. She thought of Harlan's voice, the way he had turned cruelty into command. Now he was doing what men like him often did after the damage was done. He was not running toward the patient. He was running toward the record. The doors opened on the emergency floor. The ER had not slowed. New patients had arrived from the interstate wreck. A teenage boy sat with a bandaged forehead. An older woman clutched a paper cup of water with both hands. A child slept against his father's coat. The smell of rain, disinfectant, and burnt coffee hung in the air. Maya saw Harlan at the workstation near the side hall. He was hunched over the keyboard, white coat hanging open, face washed pale by the monitor light. His fingers moved quickly, too quickly. Harlan, Clara called. He froze. Maya walked toward him. Step away from the computer. Harlan turned, irritation rising before he fully registered who stood with her. This is a patient care area. I do not answer to a nurse, and I certainly do not answer to a deputy wandering through my department. Clara held up her badge. Tonight you do. He looked past her. Where is Sheriff Brooks? With his wife, Maya said. Where you should have been focused earlier. His eyes snapped to her. You need to be very careful. No, doctor. You do. Tessa moved to the side of the workstation and looked at the screen. What are you adding? Harlan reached to close the chart, but Clara's hand came down on the desk beside the keyboard. Don't touch another key. This is absurd, Harlan said. I am completing documentation. Then you won't mind waiting for IT and administration to watch you complete it, Clara replied. Maya looked at the screen. The open note was marked as an addendum to Eleanor Brooks's intake. A few lines were visible. Nursing staff repeatedly interrupted physician assessment. Patient presentation initially consistent with chest wall trauma. Internal bleeding, not clinically evident at time of initial decision-making. Tessa read it aloud, then laughed once without humor. Not clinically evident? You mean except for the part where Maya said it, in front of half the ER? Harlan's face tightened. She was speculating. Maya stepped closer. I told you her pain moved to the shoulder. I told you her abdomen was rigid. I told you her pressure was falling too fast. And you undermined my authority while doing it. No, Maya said. I undermined your mistake. The sentence landed clean. A few nurses nearby slowed. One resident looked over from the medication cart. Calvin, the security guard who had taken Maya's badge earlier, appeared at the end of the hall and stopped when he saw the scene. Harlan saw the gathering faces and lowered his voice. You have no idea what you're doing. You'll ruin this hospital. Maya's answer came quietly. No, doctor. I'm trying to save what's left of it. For a second, the only sound was the beeping from distant rooms. Then Sheriff Brooks's voice came from behind them. And I'm trying to find out why you're editing my wife's chart at 3 in the morning. Everyone turned. The sheriff stood near the entrance to the side hall. His jacket was gone now. His sleeves rolled to the forearms, but his badge was clipped at his belt. He looked less like a visiting husband and more like the man the county called when things crossed from ugly into unlawful. Harlan swallowed. Sheriff, I was completing standard documentation. Brooks walked forward slowly. Was that before or after my wife went back into surgery for the injury your standard judgment missed? Harlan's mouth opened, then closed. Clara spoke. IT has preserved the access log. We need this workstation locked down. Calvin moved closer, uncertain. Sheriff? Brooks looked at him. Call IT. Call hospital security leadership. Nobody uses this station until the log is copied. Calvin nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Linda Carver arrived almost breathless, the attorney close behind. What is happening now? Tessa pointed at the screen. Creative. Writing. The attorney paled when he saw the open addendum. Dr. Harlan. Step away from the workstation. Harlan turned on him. I am the department chief. Linda's face was tight with something that looked like fear and anger in equal measure. Not at this computer. Not right now. Harlan straightened, trying one last time to put his title back on like armor. You cannot remove me from my own department. Sheriff Brooks looked at him without blinking. Watch me. The words were not shouted. They did not need to be. Clara stepped to Harlan's side. Dr. Richard Harlan, you are not under arrest at this time, but you are being directed to remain available for questioning. You will not access Mrs. Brooks's chart, medication orders, internal notes, camera systems, or staff statements. Do you understand? This is harassment. No, Brooks said. This is what accountability sounds like before a lawyer teaches it manners. Linda turned to Calvin. Deactivate Dr. Harlan's badge. Access to patient records pending review. Harlan stared at her. Linda. She looked at him sadly. Richard. Stop talking. Calvin took one hesitant step forward. Doctor, I need your badge. For a moment, nobody moved. Maya watched Harlan's hand go to the clip on his white coat. The badge hung there with his name, his title, his photograph, the authority he had wielded like a weapon all night. When Maya's badge had been taken, the room had watched in silence. Now the room watched again, but the silence had changed. Harlan unclipped it with stiff fingers and slapped it into Calvin's hand. This will not stand, he said. Maya looked at him. Neither did Eleanor's pressure. That was the problem. Tessa pressed her lips together, fighting the wrong moment for a smile. Clara guided Harlan away from the workstation. He resisted just enough to show anger, not enough to be charged with something worse. As he passed Maya, he leaned close and spoke under his breath. You'll regret this. Maya did not move away. Next time a nurse speaks, listen before someone dies. His eyes flickered, but he kept walking. Brooks watched him go, then turned to Maya. For a moment, the sheriff's face softened back into that of a husband. How is Eleanor? Through the second surgery, Maya said. Still critical, but she made it. His breath caught, just slightly. Thank God. Then, a sharp alarm echoed from the elevator hallway above them through the overhead call system. Recovery team to surgical unit. Recovery team to surgical unit. Maya's body went still. Tessa looked at her. That's our floor. Maya was already running. Maya reached the surgical floor before the elevator doors had fully opened. Tessa was right behind her, breathing hard. Sheriff Brooks came next, followed by Deputy Clara, though the deputy stopped him with one hand before he could push past the recovery desk. Sheriff, Clara said. Let them work. Brooks looked through the glass toward Eleanor's room. That's my wife. I know, Clara said softly. And that's why you need to let Maya get to her. Inside the recovery room, 2 nurses were already at Eleanor's bedside. Dr. Porter stood near the monitor, her face tense in a way Maya had not seen before. Not panic. Porter did not panic, but there was a narrowness around her eyes that said the night had found one more place to cut. What happened? Maya asked. Pressure dipped again, Porter said. Heart rate jumped. She became restless, then unresponsive for a few seconds. Tessa moved to the IV side. Line's good. Maya stepped close to Eleanor. The older woman's skin felt cool again. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, as though each breath had to climb over something. Is she bleeding again? Tessa asked. That's what we have to know, Porter said. Maya looked at the monitor, then at Eleanor's abdomen, then at the way one shoulder sat slightly tense beneath the blanket. Something about it bothered her. Not the same as before. Not exactly. Mrs. Brooks, Maya said, leaning close. Eleanor, can you hear me? Eleanor's eyelids moved. Her lips parted. Daniel, she whispered. He's outside, Maya said. He's right outside the door. Eleanor's brow tightened. Cold. Tessa pulled a warmer blanket from the cabinet. I've got it. Maya placed her fingers lightly at Eleanor's wrist. Fast. Thin. But there. She looked at Porter. Could be blood loss. Could be shock response. Could be pain. Porter nodded. Or the second repair is failing. Maya did not like that possibility. But liking had nothing to do with truth. The resident from earlier appeared in the doorway, pale and winded. Or 3 can be ready if needed. Porter looked at Maya. Anything else from the scene? Anything we missed? Maya closed her eyes for half a second. She went back again. Rain on her face. Eleanor pinned in the sedan. The seatbelt. The left side pain. The shoulder. The way Eleanor tried to take a breath and stopped. Then, another memory surfaced. Small and easily lost. Eleanor had said cold on the highway too. Not just from the rain. She had said, "I'm so cold," while her skin had felt clammy under Maya's hand. Maya opened her eyes. She was cold early. Too early. Tessa looked up. Shock? Yes, but maybe more than one source. Maya turned to Porter. The seatbelt injury may have caused more than abdominal trauma. Check the lower chest again. She kept guarding when she breathed. What if there's a slow bleed? Or a pressure issue we're not seeing clearly? Porter's gaze sharpened. Portable ultrasound again. And get respiratory in here. The nurse ran. Outside the glass, Sheriff Brooks stood motionless. His face was pale now, his hat crushed in both hands. Clara spoke to him quietly, but his eyes never left Eleanor. Maya saw him and felt the weight of it. She had told him Eleanor had a fighting chance. She had meant it. But fighting chances were not promises. They were bridges made of seconds. And every second had to hold. Respiratory arrived. Ultrasound followed. Porter took the probe herself. The room dimmed slightly, so the screen could speak. Gray shapes shifted across the monitor. Tessa called out vitals. Pressure still low. Heart rate 130. Maya kept one hand near Eleanor's, not holding too tightly, just giving her something human in a room full of plastic and wire. Porter moved the probe higher. There, Maya said suddenly. Porter paused. What are you seeing? Not that image. Her breathing. Maya leaned closer. Eleanor's chest lifted unevenly. She's fighting the right side less than the left. Porter adjusted the probe. Her mouth tightened. Small fluid collection. Not huge. Enough? Maybe enough for her. The resident swallowed. Back to ore? Porter considered for one breath. Then, Eleanor's monitor answered for her with a sharper alarm. Now, Porter said. The room exploded into motion, but this time, it was controlled. No shouting for pride. No wasted seconds. Tessa called blood bank. The resident cleared the route. Respiratory adjusted support. Maya helped secure lines and kept talking to Eleanor. Mrs. Brooks, we are moving again, she said. I know you are tired, but Daniel is waiting, and I am not about to explain to that man that you left before correcting his coffee order. Eleanor's fingers twitched. Tessa saw it. She heard you. Maya swallowed. Good. Then she knows I'm serious. They rolled Eleanor toward the doors. Sheriff Brooks stepped into the hall. Maya. She stopped just long enough to face him. What is happening? She may have another internal complication. Dr. Porter is taking her back now. His face tightened, but he did not fall apart. Men like Brooks had spent a lifetime learning to stay upright when the world leaned hard. Is this because of the delay downstairs? Maya hesitated. Porter answered from beside the bed. The initial delay did not help her. But right now, blame can wait. Surgery cannot. Brooks nodded once, absorbing both the truth and the command. He stepped to Eleanor's side as they passed. Ellie, I'm here. You fight. You hear me? You fight like you did when the school board tried to cut your library budget. Tessa whispered to Maya. I like her already. Maya whispered back. Everybody does. The faintest movement crossed Eleanor's mouth, so small it might have been imagination. But Brooks saw it. That was enough to keep him standing. When the OR doors closed again, inside, the room prepared for the third battle of the night. Maya washed her hands at the sink, staring at her reflection in the steel panel above it. Her face looked drawn, older, eyes too bright with exhaustion. A voice inside her whispered that she should be angry, that she should be shaking, that she should be somewhere crying over what had been said to her in that ER. But anger would have to wait. Eleanor could not. Dr. Porter came beside her, scrubbing fast. You know he asked if the delay caused this. He deserved an answer. He deserved the truth. I gave him as much as we know. Maya nodded. Porter looked at her. You still steady? No. Porter paused. Maya turned off the water. But my hands are. Porter held her gaze for a second, then nodded. That will do. They entered together. Eleanor lay beneath the lights again, smaller each time the room claimed her. Maya took her place near the monitor. Tessa stood opposite her. The resident looked scared, but not frozen now. That was progress. Fear was allowed. Paralysis was not. Porter began. Minutes moved strangely. The injury was not dramatic, but it was stubborn, hidden along a place where trauma liked to leave a final insult. Eleanor's pressure dipped once, then again. Tessa's voice stayed clear. Maya watched the rhythm, watched the breathing, watched the color beneath Eleanor's skin. The resident's hands began to shake. Maya saw it immediately. Look at me. He did. Panic later, she said. Hold pressure now. He nodded, and this time his hands steadied. Porter found the source. Small tear, slow bleed, enough to keep pulling her down. She worked quickly. The monitor protested, then wavered, then began to improve. Tessa let out a breath. Pressure rising. Porter did not stop. Not done yet. Maya leaned near Eleanor. You stay with us. You made it through the highway. You made it through the first two. You do not leave because of a small tear with bad manners. Tessa glanced over. Bad manners? I'm tired. Still accurate. At last. Porter placed the final repair and leaned back slightly. There, she said. That should hold. For several seconds. No one spoke. The monitor kept beating. That was the only applause that mattered. Maya looked down at Eleanor Brooks and felt the exhaustion press against her ribs. The night was not over. Harlan was not gone. The hospital had not confessed. Justice had not yet found its full voice. But Eleanor was still here. And for now, that was enough. The third surgery ended just before dawn. No one announced it. No one clapped. No one relaxed enough to celebrate. The monitor simply continued its steady rhythm, and after everything that had happened, that sound felt more precious than applause. Dr. Porter removed her gloves and stepped back from the table. Exhaustion showed around her eyes now. The surgical confidence was still there, but it carried the weight of a woman who had spent hours pulling someone back from the edge. She's stable, Porter said. Then she added the words everyone in medicine respected. For now, Tessa exhaled. I was starting to think this woman was personally offended by death. Maybe she is, Maya said. The resident gave a nervous laugh. Porter glanced toward Eleanor. Honestly, I hope she is. The team began preparing Eleanor for transfer back to recovery. Maya stayed near the bed. 3 surgeries. 3 chances to lose her. 3 chances she had somehow survived. As they rolled Eleanor through the hallway, the first pale hints of morning began appearing beyond the hospital windows. The storm that had battered the county all night was finally moving east. The sky remained dark, but the darkness was weakening. The recovery unit looked different at dawn. Night shift nurses carried the particular fatigue that came from seeing too much while the rest of the world slept. Coffee cups sat half-empty beside computer screens. A janitor pushed a floor machine quietly through the hall. Somewhere, a radio played old country music at barely audible volume. Sheriff Brooks was still sitting outside Eleanor's room. When he saw the bed, he stood so quickly his chair nearly tipped backward. Dr. Porter met him halfway. She made it, Porter said. The sheriff closed his eyes. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Thank you." It was unclear whether he was speaking to God, fate, or simply the universe for giving him one more day. Perhaps it did not matter. Porter placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. She's not out of danger yet, but she made it through surgery. Brooks nodded. Then, his eyes found Maya. You stayed. The words were simple, yet somehow they carried everything. The rain, the highway, the insults, the badge, the surgeries, everything. Maya looked away first. She asked me to. No, Brooks said quietly. Most people would have walked away after what happened. Maya did not answer, because part of him was right. Part of her had wanted to walk away. Part of her had wanted to leave the hospital, drive home, lock the door, and spend the rest of the day forgetting Richard Harlan ever existed. But Eleanor had needed her, and sometimes that had to be enough. As the recovery team settled Eleanor back into her room, Deputy Clara appeared at the nurse's station carrying a thick folder. "You look like somebody handed you homework," Tessa said. "Worse." Clara placed the folder on the counter. "What is it?" Maya asked. "The camera footage." Tessa straightened immediately. "Already?" Sheriff wanted copies secured before anything mysteriously disappeared. Maya nodded. That sounded like him. Clara opened the folder. 3 camera angles. Audio from the trauma bay. Statements from 6 staff members so far. Tessa looked surprised. "N6. Actually 8 now. People are talking?" "Turns out," Clara said. "A lot of people suddenly remembered they have consciences." Maya looked down. She did not feel satisfaction, only sadness, because none of those people had spoken when it mattered. Clara seemed to understand. "Some of them are embarrassed," she said. "They should be." The voice came from behind them. Everyone turned. Calvin stood there. The security guard looked uncomfortable. His uniform was wrinkled. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. He glanced toward Maya. "I should have said something." Nobody spoke. Calvin swallowed. When he said those things, he shook his head. "I knew it was wrong." Maya looked at him quietly. "But you took my badge anyway." "Yes." The answer came immediately. No excuse, no explanations, just truth. Calvin nodded once. "Yes, I did." The honesty softened something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something. "I'm sorry," he said. Maya studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. "Next time," she said. "Be brave, faster." Calvin looked like someone had punched him and hugged him at the same time. "Yes, ma'am." He walked away. Tessa watched him go. "That man isn't sleeping well for a month." "No," Maya agreed. "He shouldn't." A faint sound came from Eleanor's room. Everyone turned. The older woman's hand had moved. Just slightly. But this time it wasn't unconscious reflex. Maya entered immediately. Sheriff Brooks followed. Eleanor's eyes remained closed. But her fingers moved again. Slowly, deliberately. Daniel took her hand. "Ellie?" Her eyelids fluttered. Maya stepped closer. "Mrs. Brooks?" A long moment passed. Then Eleanor opened her eyes. Only halfway. But they opened. Daniel made a sound Maya would remember for years. Not a laugh. Not a cry. Something deeper. The sound a person makes when a nightmare finally loosens its grip. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered. Eleanor looked at him. Confusion crossed her face. Then, recognition. Her lips moved. "Daniel? I'm here." A tear slipped down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. Eleanor looked around the room slowly. The machines, the lights, the blankets. Then her eyes found Maya. For several seconds, she simply looked at her. Then she smiled. It was weak, tiny, barely there. But it was real. "You stayed," Eleanor whispered. Maya felt her throat tighten. "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor's fingers squeezed hers. Not strongly, but intentionally. "Good." Daniel laughed through tears. "That sounds exactly like you." Eleanor turned toward him. "Coffee?" The sheriff blinked. "What?" "Your coffee." Maya covered her mouth. Tessa spun around to hide her grin. Daniel shook his head. "You nearly died 3 times, and that's your first question. Important. Ellie, did you burn it?" The sheriff laughed outright now. The sound echoed through the room. Outside the door, nurses smiled. Inside, something changed. Not medically, emotionally. For the first time all night, Hope stopped feeling fragile. Eleanor looked back toward Maya. The smile faded slightly. Did he listen? Maya knew exactly who she meant. "No," Maya said honestly. Eleanor sighed. "Stubborn fool." Daniel squeezed her hand. "You have no idea." Then, his expression changed. The sheriff looked toward Clara standing outside the room with the folder. The folder containing statements, recordings, evidence, truth. Eleanor followed his gaze. "What happened?" Daniel looked at Maya, then back at his wife. "A lot," he said quietly. Eleanor studied his face. Then she looked at Maya again. Something passed between the two women. A silent understanding. Whatever came next would no longer be about survival. Survival had been won. Now it would be about justice. By sunrise, Street Mercy Regional Hospital had become 2 different places. In one room, Eleanor Brooks slept with her husband beside her, her hand resting inside his like something rescued from deep water. Nurses came and went softly. Doctor. Porter checked the monitor every few minutes, never trusting improvement too quickly. Tessa brought Sheriff Brooks a fresh cup of coffee, then warned him not to complain because it came from a machine old enough to have voted. In another part of the hospital, the truth was waking up louder than any alarm. Deputy Clara Hayes had moved into the small security office near the ER with 2 hospital security supervisors and an IT technician who looked as though he had been dragged from bed by a subpoena. Camera footage played on 3 screens. The angle from the trauma bay showed Maya standing beside Eleanor's bed. The audio was clear enough. Too clear. Dr. Harlan's voice filled the room again. I don't need a black nurse teaching me how to save a white woman. The IT technician stared at the keyboard. One of the security supervisors whispered, Lord, have mercy. Sheriff Brooks stood behind Clara with his arms folded. He did not flinch when he heard the words a second time. That was what scared people most. His anger had settled into something colder, something organized. Copy it, he said. We already have 2 backups, Clara replied. 1 on hospital evidence hold, 1 for the sheriff's office. IT is preserving the access logs from Harlan's workstation too. Good. Linda Carver stood near the door with the hospital attorney. She had stopped trying to smile sometime before dawn. Sheriff, she said carefully. Dr. Harlan has been placed on administrative leave pending internal review. Brooks looked at the screen, not at her. Administrative leave is not the same as accountability. No, Linda said, but it is the first step we can take before the board convenes. Clara glanced at the attorney. And before anyone asks, yes, we'll need written confirmation that his access remains suspended. The attorney nodded quickly. That can be arranged. Brooks finally turned. Not arranged. Done. The man swallowed. Done. Down the hall, Dr. Harlan sat in a consultation room with 2 security officers outside the door. His white coat was gone. Without it, he looked smaller, not humble, just stripped of the costume that had helped him confuse authority with wisdom. Maya saw him only because she was walking past with Tessa on her way back from checking Eleanor's labs. Harlan looked through the glass panel in the door and caught her eye. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he stood. Tessa immediately muttered, Absolutely not. But Harlan opened the door before the security officer could stop him. I need to speak with her, he said. The officer looked toward Maya. Maya could have kept walking. A wiser part of her told her to. But the night had already taken so much from her that she wanted at least one thing returned in plain words. She stopped several feet away. You can speak from there, Tessa said. Harlan looked at Tessa with irritation, then seemed to remember he no longer had the power to dismiss her. His gaze returned to Maya. This has gone too far, he said. Maya's face did not change. That's your opening? I made a clinical judgment under pressure. You made a judgment about me before you made one about her. His mouth tightened. You were insubordinate. I was right. The words stood between them. Harlan looked away first. A nurse passed at the end of the hall and slowed, watching. Then another. In hospitals, news traveled faster than lab results. By now, everyone knew enough to understand this conversation mattered. Harlan lowered his voice. Do you understand what this will do to my career? Maya stared at him. All the exhaustion in her body seemed to gather behind her ribs. Eleanor Brooks nearly died 3 times tonight, she said. And you are still talking about your career. Something flickered across his face then. Shame, maybe. Or fear realizing shame would have been more useful. I didn't know she was the sheriff's wife, he said. That is not a defense. That is the whole problem. Tessa's expression softened with grim satisfaction. Maya stepped 1 pace closer, still leaving distance between them. If Eleanor had been a woman nobody knew, if her husband had been a mechanic or a bus driver or no husband at all, you would have let them call me difficult. You would have let them write miscommunication. You would have gone home believing the room still belonged to you. Harlan said nothing. Maya's voice stayed quiet. Next time a nurse speaks, listen before someone dies. This time, the sentence did not sound like anger. It sounded like a verdict. Before Harlan could answer, Sheriff Brooks appeared at the end of the hall with Deputy Clara. His eyes moved from Harlan to Maya. "Everything all right here?" Maya looked at Harlan for one last second. "It is now." Brooks turned to the security officers. "Dr. Harlan is to remain available for questioning. He does not enter patient care areas. He does not access records. If he needs anything, he asks." One officer nodded. "Yes, Sheriff." Harlan's face flushed. "I am not a criminal." Brooks looked at him evenly. "Then stop behaving like a man afraid of evidence." Harlan stepped back into the room. The door closed. The hallway remained still for a moment, and then life resumed. Nurses moved again. A phone rang. Someone laughed too loudly from the break room, then quickly went quiet. Normalcy was trying to return, but it did not fit the same way anymore. Brooks turned to Maya. "Eleanor's asking for you." Maya blinked. "She's awake?" "Enough to be stubborn." Tessa nodded. "That woman is definitely recovering." In Eleanor's room, morning light had begun to press through the blinds. The storm had left wet streaks on the windows, and the first weak gold of day touched the edge of Eleanor's blanket. Eleanor looked exhausted, but her eyes were clearer than before. Daniel sat beside her, holding the small plastic container with her wedding ring inside. Maya entered quietly. "Mrs. Brooks." Eleanor turned her head. "Maya." Her voice was barely more than breath, but it held purpose. Daniel leaned close. "Don't wear yourself out." Eleanor gave him the look of a woman who had corrected generations of children and one husband for decades. He sat back. "Yes, ma'am." Maya smiled despite herself. Eleanor looked at her for a long moment. "They tried to send you away." "Yes, ma'am. But you came back. You needed help." Eleanor's eyes moistened. "A lot of people need help and still get left behind." Maya had no easy answer for that. Daniel reached for his wife's hand, but Eleanor kept looking at Maya. "You listen," Eleanor whispered. "That's why I remembered you." Maya's throat tightened. Outside the room, staff gathered quietly near the glass. Not crowding, just present. Tessa, Dr. Porter, Calvin, Clara, even Linda Carver. They heard enough. Sheriff Brooks stood and turned toward them. His voice carried into the hallway. "This woman saved my wife twice tonight. Once on the highway, and once in a hospital that tried to throw her away." No one spoke. Maya looked down, uncomfortable with every eye on her. Brooks continued, quieter but firmer. "And if Street Mercy wants to call itself a place of healing, it can start by telling the truth about what happened here." Linda Carver lowered her gaze. Dr. Porter nodded once. Tessa wiped at the corner of her eye and pretended she had not. Eleanor squeezed Maya's fingers weakly. "Stay," she whispered. Maya looked at the older woman, then at the hallway full of people who had finally begun to understand. "I will," she said, but in her heart, she knew staying would no longer mean simply showing up for another shift. It would mean making sure the next voice like hers was heard before the danger became a tragedy. 2 hours after Sheriff Brooks spoke in the hallway, the hospital asked Maya to come to a meeting. They did not call it a disciplinary meeting. They did not call it damage control. They called it a review conversation, which made Tessa laugh so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. "That sounds like a church committee trying to fire the choir director," Tessa said. Maya stood outside Eleanor's room, watching through the glass as the older woman slept. Daniel Brooks sat beside her, reading from a worn paperback he had pulled from his coat pocket. His voice was low enough that Maya could not hear the words, but Eleanor's hand rested peacefully in his. Dr. Porter checked the chart beside Maya. "You don't have to go in alone." Maya looked at her. "Are you offering?" "I'm insisting." Tessa raised her hand. "I'm also insisting, but with more attitude." Maya shook her head, though a small smile touched her face. "Fine, but nobody starts a fight unless they deserve it." Tessa took a sip of coffee. "That is not a restriction. That is an invitation." The conference room looked different in daylight. The American flag still stood in the corner. The mission statement still hung on the wall, promising compassion and excellence. But now the blinds were open, and morning sun made the dust on the table visible. Maya thought that was fitting. Light had a way of showing what people missed in the dark. Linda Carver sat at the head of the table with Denise from Human Resources, Paul from Risk Management, the hospital attorney, and 2 board members who had clearly been called from home. One still wore a golf pullover beneath his blazer. Another kept rubbing his eyes, as if he hoped the whole night might vanish if he pressed hard enough. Maya entered with Dr. Porter on one side and Tessa on the other. Linda stood. "Maya, thank you for coming." Maya did not sit. "How is this going to work?" Linda paused. "We'd like to begin by acknowledging that what happened tonight was unacceptable," Tessa muttered. "Strong opening. Let's see if it survives the second sentence." Dr. Porter gave her a look. Linda continued. "Dr. Harlan has been placed on administrative leave. His access has been suspended. The board will cooperate with Sheriff Brooks's investigation." Maya waited. The attorney slid a small envelope across the table. "Your badge access has been fully restored. Your employment status is active, with no disciplinary marks related to tonight." Maya looked at the envelope but did not touch it. Paul leaned forward. "Maya, we want you to know the hospital values your service." There it was. The soft language. The careful return of dignity, as if dignity were an item they had misplaced and now expected her to be grateful for finding. Maya pulled out a chair and sat slowly. "I don't want my badge back, just so this hospital can pretend tonight never happened." No one answered right away. Linda folded her hands. "What are you asking for?" Maya looked around the table. She was tired enough to tremble, but her voice did not. "An independent investigation into Dr. Harlan's conduct. Not just the words he used, but the medical decisions he made after ignoring warnings." The board member in the golf pullover shifted. "That may expose the hospital to significant liability." Dr. Porter spoke before Maya could. "Mrs. Brooks was exposed to significant risk." "Start there," Maya continued. "Second, nurses need protection when they report a clinical danger. If a nurse raises a concern about a patient's life, that concern goes into the chart. It does not disappear because a doctor feels challenged," Denise wrote quickly. "Third," Maya said, "anti-bias training for emergency staff. Real training. Not a 20-minute video people play while answering emails." Tessa pointed at her with the coffee cup. "Put that in bold." "Fourth," Maya said, "no retaliation. Not against me, not against Tessa, not against the residents or nurses who give honest statements." Linda nodded slowly. "That is reasonable." "And fifth," Maya said, "the hospital apologizes to Eleanor Brooks and her family. Publicly, if Sheriff Brooks wants it public. Privately, if Mrs. Brooks wants peace. But you do not hide behind procedure after she almost died in your care." The attorney looked pained. An apology can be legally complicated. Tessa leaned back. "So is racism. But Dr. Harlan managed it without a committee." One of the board members coughed into his hand. Linda looked at Maya for a long moment. Something in her face changed then. The administrator remained, but beneath it appeared a woman old enough to know that institutions often ask the wrong people to be patient. "You should not have had to ask for these things," Linda said. "No," Maya replied. "I shouldn't have." Paul glanced toward the mission statement on the wall. "This will take time." Maya's eyes followed his. "Justice is not fair because it arrives late," she said. "But when it arrives, it should at least tell the truth." The room went quiet. Dr. Porter nodded once, as if the sentence had confirmed something she already believed. Tessa stopped joking. Even the attorney looked down at his folder. Linda closed her notebook. "I will bring these demands to the board immediately. And Maya," she drew a careful breath, "I am sorry. Not as an administrator. As a person who should have said that sooner." Maya studied her. The apology did not repair the night. It did not erase Harlan's words. But it was a door cracked open in a wall that had stood too long. "Thank you," Maya said. "Now make it mean something." When Maya stepped back into the hall, Sheriff Brooks was waiting near the windows with Deputy Clara. Morning light had turned the wet parking lot silver. News of the interstate crash had drawn local reporters to the street, but none had been allowed near Eleanor's floor. Brooks looked at Maya. "Did they do right?" "They started. That's not the same thing." "No," Maya said. "But it's better than pretending." Clara held up a folder. "The investigation is moving. Staff statements are coming in. EMS confirmed your handoff at the scene. Harlan's attempted chart addendum has been preserved." Tessa crossed her arms. "I hope they print it on nice paper for court." Brooks gave a faint smile. then looked back toward Eleanor's room. "Ellie's asking for the young woman who bossed me around." Maya blinked. "She means me?" "She said there were several, but you were the first." Inside the room, Eleanor was awake again. She looked weak, but her eyes had more life in them now. A vase of grocery store flowers sat on the bedside table, brought by a nurse who said every good teacher deserved flowers, even if they came from the hospital gift shop. Maya entered quietly. Eleanor watched her approach. "They giving you trouble?" Maya smiled. "A little less than before." "Good." Sheriff Brooks sat beside his wife. She made demands. Eleanor's eyes brightened faintly. "Smart girl." Maya shook her head. "Ma'am, you just came through 3 surgeries. You don't have to manage hospital reform today." Eleanor's mouth curved. "I was a school principal. Reform follows me." Daniel laughed softly and kissed her hand. Eleanor looked at Maya more seriously then. "Don't let them give you back only what they took. Make them give the next woman more." Maya felt those words settle deep. "I'm trying." "No," Eleanor whispered. "You're doing." Outside, the hospital moved into mourning. Phones rang. Families arrived. Doctors changed shifts. Coffee was poured into paper cups by people who had survived the night and people who had no idea what had almost been lost inside it. Maya stood by Eleanor's bed and understood something with quiet certainty. Her badge had been returned, but that was not the victory. The victory would be the next time a nurse spoke and the room listened before the monitor screamed. 1 month later, the emergency room at Street Mercy Regional Hospital still sounded the same. Phones rang. Monitors beeped. Stretchers rolled over polished floors. Nurses called for labs. Residents searched for missing charts. And somewhere near the break room, the old coffee machine made a sound like it was fighting for its life. The hospital had not become perfect. No hospital ever did. But some rooms change before people find the courage to admit it. Maya William walked through the sliding doors at 6:42 inches the evening, 12 minutes early for her shift. Her badge was clipped neatly to her navy scrubs. Maya William, RN. The same name, the same 2 letters. But now, when she passed the nurse's station, people looked at her differently. Not with fear, not exactly with admiration either. More like recognition, like they had finally learned that quiet did not mean uncertain, and a title did not always tell the whole truth about a person's worth. Tessa Monroe looked up from the desk and held out a paper cup. "Don't ask," she said. "Just drink." Maya took it and sniffed. "Is this coffee or punishment?" "Both. It builds character. I have enough character. Then it'll keep you humble." Maya smiled and took a cautious sip. It was terrible, but warm. In a hospital, sometimes that was enough. Across the ER, a new policy sheet had been posted beside the trauma assignment board. Every nurse had read it. Every physician had signed it. Clinical safety concerns raised by nursing staff were now required to be acknowledged, documented, and escalated if unresolved. Bias training had begun the previous week, and unlike the old online modules, this one required people to sit in a room, listen, speak, and feel uncomfortable without being allowed to click next. Dr. Harlan was gone. Officially, he remained under investigation. Unofficially, everyone knew he would not return to Street Mercy. His attempted chart revision, the camera footage, the witness statements, and Eleanor Brooks's outcome had become a wall too high for even hospital politics to climb over. Maya did not celebrate that. She had seen too many people mistake consequences for healing. They were not the same. Near Trauma Room 2, a young resident named Dr. Wallace stood with an older black nurse, Mrs. Laverne Jenkins, who had worked at Street Mercy longer than half the staff had been alive. A new patient had arrived with chest pain after a fall, and Wallace was speaking too fast, already reaching for an easy explanation. Maya stopped near the counter, not interfering, just listening. Mrs. Jenkins said, "Doctor, his pressure is uneven between arms. I don't like it." Wallace barely glanced up. He fell. "It's probably musculoskeletal." Mrs. Jenkins did not move. "I said I don't like it." For a moment, the old room held its breath. Wallace looked toward Maya. She did not speak. She only met his eyes. Something passed through him. Not fear, but memory. Every hospital had stories. This one now had a new one. He turned back to Mrs. Jenkins. "What are you seeing?" Mrs. Jenkins blinked once, then began explaining. Wallace listened, really listened. A minute later, he ordered the right scan and called the attending. Tessa leaned beside Maya. "Well, look at that." Maya sipped the bad coffee. "Progress? Don't get carried away. It's still street mercy." Maya smiled. "Fair." A voice came from the ambulance bay entrance. "I was told I might find the woman who bossed me around while my wife was unconscious." Maya turned. Sheriff Daniel Brooks stood just inside the doors, dressed in jeans, boots, and a button-down shirt instead of his full uniform. He still carried himself like a sheriff, but tonight his face was lighter. Beside him stood Eleanor Brooks, thinner than before, moving carefully with a cane in one hand and her husband's arm in the other. The ER seemed to soften around her. Tessa put a hand over her chest. "Mrs. Brooks, look at you." Eleanor smiled. Slow, but upright. "At my age, that counts as a parade." Maya walked toward her. "You should not be walking this far without resting." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "There she is." Brooks gave Maya a helpless look. "I tried telling her." Eleanor patted his arm. "He tried. It was sweet." Maya laughed softly and guided them toward a quieter corner near the nurse's station. "How are you feeling?" "Annoyed by everyone's concern, which Daniel says is a sign I'm getting better." "It is," Brooks said. "Also terrifying for the rest of us." Eleanor reached into the small tote bag hanging from her wrist and pulled out a folded blue knitted scarf. The same scarf from the highway. Clean now, carefully mended where it had torn. Maya's expression changed. "I thought you'd want that back," she said. Eleanor shook her head. "I did. For about 5 minutes. Then I decided you should keep it." Maya looked at her. "Mrs. Brooks." "Eleanor," she corrected. Maya held the scarf gently. "Eleanor, I can't take this." "You can. I'm older than you, and I outrank you in stubbornness." Tessa murmured. "That may be true." Eleanor's eyes stayed on Maya. "That scarf was with me when I thought I might not see my husband again. It was with me when you told me to keep breathing. I want it with you because one day another patient will be scared, and you may need reminding that your voice can lead someone through the worst night of their life." Maya looked down at the scarf. For a moment, the ER faded. The noise, the policies, the tension, the history. All she could see was rain on broken glass and Eleanor's hand reaching for hers. "Thank you," Maya said, barely above a whisper. Eleanor squeezed her hand. "No. Thank you for not letting their cruelty become my death sentence." Brooks looked away, blinking hard. Tessa suddenly became very interested in reorganizing pens. Maya folded the scarf carefully over her arm. Brooks cleared his throat. "The county board is reviewing emergency response coordination after the wreck." Eleanor insisted on speaking. Eleanor smiled. "I used to speak to 5th graders before lunch. County officials don't scare me." "No," Brooks said. "They're afraid of you, as they should be." Maya smiled, but her eyes were wet. A call came over the intercom. Another ambulance was arriving. The room shifted instantly back into motion. Nurses moved. Doors opened. A stretcher was prepared. Eleanor watched Maya's face change from emotion to focus. "That's your place," Eleanor said. Maya looked at the trauma bay, then back at her. "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor held her gaze. "Then make sure they hear you." Maya nodded. She clipped the blue scarf carefully beside her station, not as decoration, but as a reminder. Then, she walked toward the ambulance doors. The new patient came in, frightened and confused, his wife hurrying behind the stretcher. A young nurse began giving a report, and when a resident started to speak over her, he stopped himself. "What did you see?" he asked. Maya heard it. So did Tessa. So did Mrs. Jenkins. The change was small. A sentence. A pause. A room choosing to listen before pride could raise its voice. But justice often began that way. Not with thunder. Not with applause. Sometimes it began with one person being believed in time. Maya stepped beside the bed, her voice calm and clear. "I'm right here," she told the patient. "Stay with me." Outside, the last light of Georgia evening warmed the wet pavement, where ambulances came and went. Inside, Street Mercy kept breathing. Imperfect but altered. They had told Maya William to get out of sight. But by morning, everyone in that hospital understood one thing. Some women are not invisible. They are the reason others survive. The lesson of this story is simple. Never judge someone by their race, title, or position. Maya William was dismissed as just a nurse, but her courage, experience, and compassion saved a life. True justice begins when people choose to listen before pride does harm. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one carrying the truth everyone else needs to hear. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. If it touched your heart, I would truly love to hear your thoughts on the storytelling, the emotional pacing, or whatever stayed with you after listening. Every comment you share helps make the next stories more honest, moving, and meaningful. And if you have a powerful or meaningful story of your own, please do not hesitate to send it to the channel. It may become the next story to touch and inspire thousands of others. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.